Hello students, Namaste, welcome to BTech 360. Last week, I received a very disturbing mail from a student who was studying in a third generation IIT. And when I saw the mail and the kind of data information that the student was giving, which is very disturbing, it can demotivate any student who is wanted to study in an IIT. I thought I must take up this issue. And most importantly, please subscribe to BTech 360 because we are committed to bring to you very detailed, very in-depth, incisive reports that help you make that call of which is a better BTech college for you. Whether IIT or NIT or any of the private colleges also, we are committed to bring you the best data so that you can take the best decision for yourself. This was about the placement scenario in one of the third generation IITs, which is IIT Tirupati. Now what we did was, this is a student, by the way, who is right now studying there and he's going through the placement process and he's trying to somehow get placed somewhere. And what does the student write to me? The student says, I'm a core branch BTech student from IIT Tirupati and this year's placement season has been really rough. Our total batch size, BTech plus MTech, is around 280 students, and so far less than 40 have been placed. Just 40, which is, just imagine, right? Around half of the CS students got placed, which means half of them has still not been placed. Only about 10% of electrical got placed, and 0 students from civil, chemical, or mechanical so far. For me, this disturbed me no end, because remember, anyone who's studying in IIT Tirupati is the top 1 percentile of the students. The top 1 percentile of the student, and these top students of this country are not being placed, and that for me is really disturbing. The student goes on to say, I started coding after realizing that core companies rarely visit in the first phase, and even now most IT companies restrict eligibility to CS students only. Not a single good company has opened up for its core branches. It's hard not to feel demotivated, the student says. If this is how bad it is in an IIT, I can't even imagine what students in tier 3 colleges must be going through. The system feels really broken. This is a student who's completely broken with the kind of placement that happened at an IIT and is writing to us. I thought it was my responsibility to take it up and ensure that these students get to know about the situation that is out there. Now, when I look at IIT Tirupati, and what does the student say? 280 students? Less than 40 students being placed. About 50% of the students of CS are placed, but core engineering is almost 0, electrical about 10%. Now, when you deal with that, I thought that I must first of all get a response from IIT Tirupati itself. So we wrote to IIT Tirupati and asked them what the reality is. And when we received the response from IIT Tirupati, it did respond, but it did not quantify anything. Response says, the placement season for the third generation IITs commenced on 1st September. The response came to us around 10th of November, which means 2.5 months down the line, right? And will continue till June 2026. To date, 97 companies visited our campus, extending 62 offers. So just now look at it. 97 companies visited, but only 62 offers were made. Typically, when you have so many companies visiting, you will actually have a multiple in terms of the offers. But here, most of the companies didn't even make an offer. And that, again, is quite bothering for me. The key recruiters for core branches include L&T, Bosch, Morphy Labs, Virtuosa, Toshiba, and so on and so forth, with over 20 additional companies currently in the recruitment process for other disciplines. Several core engineering organizations, including Kia, Hyundai, ITC, Cummins. By the way, all these are companies that are around that, Andhra Pradesh, so IIT Tirupati. So obviously, the local companies are most favored to in terms of going to the campus and doing it, which is what this mail response seems to suggest. Additionally, they talk of PSUs, by the way, and the response says, additionally, BPCL, SPCL, BL and other PSUs are also other recruiters. The conversation is on and they will be coming in soon. Now, this for me, I gave specific information. We talked of how 40 students were only recruited. These people obviously talk of 62 offers being made to the students. But that's because there might be a lag of about 15, 20, 30 days kind of a thing, right? And more importantly, 97 companies visited, 62 offers being made, and most of the companies are largely companies which have factories set up in Andhra and around. And that is what seems to be the case. Why do I say that? Let me take you through some other data of another institution and then we'll be able to compare the two. So, on the similar day, on the last week itself, we also got some news from NIT Warangal. Now, NIT Warangal is a legacy institution. It's been there for a long time and it's been consistently delivering. But the student who joins NIT Warangal is possibly having a lesser score or lesser marks than what IIT Tirupati has, because IITs, what people do is people tend to go for an IIT tag and try to move away from the NIT tag. Not move away, but first they make a first choice of IIT tag before they choose NIT, which is where we thought we'll compare, because both these incidents happen in the same week for me. And the NIT Warangal, what exactly happened? In the early phase of placements, over 200 students of the NIT Warangal have received offers of more than rupees 20 lakhs. A BTech CS graduate received a domestic offer of 1.27 crores, the highest ever package in the institute's history. Narayan Tyagi clinched the highest salary package from a multinational company, followed by Mohammad Nahil Niswan from electrical and electronics. Now we're talking of electrical and electronic with a CTC of rupees 1 crore. Within the first 2 months of NIT domestic placement season, the institute witnessed an average package of over rupees 26 lakhs. 6 students received an offer of CTC of 70 lakhs and more. 34 secured offers exceeding rupees 50 lakh rupees. 125 bagged offers of 30 lakhs. 163 crossed the package of rupees 25 lakhs. So the data is very, very clear here of how NIT Warangal seems to be attracting the best companies with best median salaries, with best placements. And the companies that visit NIT Warangal also is very crucial. There we talked of SPCL, BPCL, the PSUs and local companies around the place, which is the Kia and Hyundai and ITC. But here look at the companies that are coming for NIT Warangal. It includes LinkedIn, Microsoft, DE Shaw, Goldman Sachs, Nvidia, Harness, Qualcomm, Flipkart, Meesho, Oracle, Okta, Morgan Stanley, SPCL, Chevron, ExxonMobil, Samsung, and on and on and on. A lot many MNCs are coming and visiting NIT Warangal. Maybe because it's a legacy institution, maybe they've proven over the time, but that's what happened. Now, if you look at IIT Tirupati on a standalone basis, established in 2015, so about 11 years old. It's an institution of national importance. It's an IIT Tag. It's spread over 548 acres. The ranking of IIT Warangal, Tirupati is 57th best in the country. Right, which means it's up there in terms of the quality of intake that it has. The total students are 900, of which 721 or about 80% are boys and 20% are girls. And 61% students come from outside of the state of Andhra. But it's got there. It's an IIT with a massive state backing it completely. Right. Now, when you look at the data of an IIT Tirupati, then this bothered me a lot more. The latest data of NIRF, which is National Institutional Ranking Framework, is for the year 23-24, where the placements have completed. And we try to compare it with the placements of 22-23 to understand what's happened. The placed students in 22-23 was about 87%, and at least that's what IIT Tirupati says. But there is a lot between the cup and the lip, and I'll talk about that also. But the median salary, which was 16 lakhs in the previous year, fell down to 11 lakhs. That's a massive drop of 40-45%. More importantly, when you actually look at the students, the placed students as compared to the admitted students. Now, what essentially happens is the typical institution says a lot more students have gone for higher education. So they remove that. So essentially what they do is they try to reduce the number of people who sat for placement. But by experience, I can tell you that whenever you actually have higher number of students moving for higher education, it essentially means that they're not getting placed, so they move on to higher education. Because if you look at the best IITs and the best IIMs and all, the core branches always have all students sitting for placement, but the CS branches. But as you keep moving down, you suddenly have students moving for higher education. Why do they do that? Why is it that the best branch actually sits for placement and not so good branch or not so good institution moves the students for higher education? That's because what essentially happens is when you're not placed, what do? You move for higher education. And when you look at that kind of data, only 49.57% students were actually placed in IIT Tirupati. Right, from the number of students who got admitted into the institution. The number of students who got admitted, the number of students who got placed was 114, and the median salary fell from 16 lakhs to 11 lakhs. So a fall in number of the median salary that you have and a fall in placements, because in the previous year a lot more students were placed, and as you move along the lesser number of students are getting placed. This should bother all of us who are trying to really promote the third generation IITs, because when a student joins an IIT, they believe in their head, which is what the student also wrote, that it left him demotivated, it left him broken. The reason is simple. When you join IIT, you believe that your career is set, your career is set to take off. But it no longer seems to be holding true, at least as far as third generation IITs is concerned. 2024, we actually have an RTA response of how is the placement happening across branches. And this was on 10th May 2024 is when this RTA response was dated, which essentially means that 23-24 batch is completely done in terms of its placement cycle. So when we looked at data of the 24 RTA response that we had, about 68% of the CS students were only placed. right? And as you keep moving down to the core engineering, civil engineering, only 13% of the students were placed. 13%. That's the kind of disturbing trend that we're dealing with. So one, even the CS students are not getting placed. And two, more importantly, even at core engineering level, very, very few students are getting placed. As I said, IITs and NITs, they keep working on data to say that a lot more students have opted out of placement process, which I told you earlier also, it is not completely true, because when a student doesn't get placed, all they do is to say, I'm moving for higher studies. And the IITs and NITs are very gleefully saying, okay, the students have moved for higher studies. The student moved for higher studies because you could not place them. That is the truth. That is a fact. But the institute claims that the student has moved for higher education, so that they say the number of students who got placed and the number of students who sat for placement, there is a lesser gap, which is what they tend to do, right? So if you look at it in the same 24 RTI response, only 4 students of CSC actually opted out of placement. Whereas when you get down to civil engineering or electrical and all, there were 10 to 15 students got opted out of placement. So essentially what is happening here is that wherever the institution can place, the opt-outs are lesser. And when the institute cannot place, the opt-outs are higher. And even after that, the placement percentage is between 65-70% to 10-15%. Even after the opt-outs are considered. See, what is the purpose of this entire episode? It is trying to tell you that you don't please go for the IIT Tag only. There are far better institutions that you should consider, and studying in the IIT doesn't guarantee anything. It is far better that at your merit, you might get a better college with better placement and student outcomes, and which is what you must consider. If you look at NIT Warangal versus IIT Tirupati, of course IITs admit students through JEE Advanced and NIT admits students from JEE Main. But the JEE Main rank of 3530 home state and 2409 got a CS seat in NIT Warangal. Whereas in IIT Tirupati it is 5034 all India rank for JEE Advanced. Right? So pretty less gap, 3530 versus 5034. Of course, one is JEE Main and JEE Advanced, but if you were to assume that a similar bunch of kind of ranking happened for all the students who appeared, then the gap is very less, right? And as you keep moving down the ladder, for example, if you look at mechanical, a 17,000 rank would get you in JEE Main, NIT Warangal, whereas in IIT Tirupati, it's 12,000 of JEE Advanced, of course. So when you compare, possibly the quality of the student is similar, 12,000 there and 17,000 here. In fact, NIT Warangal has a weaker bunch of students, if you were to assume the similar ranking process or linear merit that is taking over, right? So when you look at that kind of data, you realize that the quality of intake in IIT Tirupati, in terms of at the intake level, at the admission level, is possibly slightly better than what you have at NIT Warangal. Possibly. I don't know, because we can't compare. I don't have the data of comparing JEE Main versus JEE Advanced rate. But if you were to assume a similar linear set or linear ranking process that happens, then this is what seems to be the case, right? But the placement at IIT Tirupati is dramatically lesser. About 35, 40, 50% students getting placed, and at a median salary of 11 lakh rupees. When you talk of median salary of 11 lakh rupees, I'm really scared to even imagine what the lowest salary would be. In my opinion, it would be 6, 7, 8 lakh rupees. So the question that we must be asking at this point in time is, are you looking to get an IIT Tag, or are you looking for a good student outcome? Is the third generation IITs, do they require a lot more fillip and not a lot more push to ensure that the industry actually accepts them for what they are and go there and get the best students out? Is there a need for us to reevaluate how many IITs we start, because obviously the promise of outcome is not being delivered by the kind of work, the kind of placement that happen, whereas the legacy NITs seem to be doing far, far better. And for you as a parent or a student, the simple thing that you must look at is, please look at data. Please look at data to understand where you're likely to get an outcome that you desire. If you want employment, if you want placements, possibly the legacy NITs are far, far better than the recent IITs that have been started, because the recent IITs seem to be failing dramatically. 50% placement, just imagine that. 50, 60, 70% placement, median salary being 11 lakh rupees. Whereas you could have got into one of the legacy NITs and got a far, far better exposure, far better placement outcome, and that would have really worked for you. This is a question that you must look for. And most importantly, please subscribe to BTech 360, because we are committed to bring to you very detailed, very in-depth, incisive reports that help you make that call of which is a better BTech college for you. Whether IIT or NIT or any of the private colleges also, we are committed to bring you the best data so that you can take the best decision for yourself. Thank you so much. Namaste.